Wildly optimistic scientific estimates say that the human species will last about another 1 billion years, until the expanding envelope of the sun bulges outward and heats the Earth to about 900 degrees Fahrenheit. In the meantime, here's what we're doing to hasten our own demise. I'm Larry Fedoruk, and this is Later That Same Life. On my weekly podcast, topics, discussions, stories from our lives.
Season 9, Chapter 6.
Existential
Threats.
Yeah, eventually the sun will kill us. Damn sun. I always knew it was up to no good. Excuse me, do you carry Hawaiian Tropic sunblock SPF 10 million? Yeah, that's not going to help you. So the very ecosystem we live in is an existential threat to humanity. But this podcast is not about that. Existential. It simply means existence. We are here. We think, therefore we am. Existential threat has become this buzz phrase, a way to add weight to the problems that face humanity. I don't think the experts are using it lightly, but I sure am hearing it a lot lately. Well, what are the existential threats to humanity? I'll explore. And by the way, it's a top 5 list. Here's a cheery note. We, humans, do a lot of things to our own detriment. We lose millions to war, famine, disease. But this top 5 list, existential threats, is about wiping out our entire species. Can you imagine? Well, you probably can. There have been enough apocalyptic movies to at least give us a sense of it. And for decades, we've talked about humans being able to destroy our planet. And of course, what we really mean is not the planet, but us. Earth will survive as a planet long after we cease to exist. Stop saying you're trying to save the planet. You're just trying to save yourself, which is fine. Just let's be clear. Top 5 existential threats. Number 1, an oldie but a goodie. Nuclear war. Ever since the United States dropped 2 nuclear bombs on Japan in 1945, most of humanity has lived under the threat of a devastating nuclear war. We even set up a symbolic doomsday clock, with midnight being the witching hour when it's all over. In January of 2023, the clock has been reset to 90 seconds to midnight. Not only do 3 major superpowers have enough nukes to blow us up several times over, but now any idiot or idiot nation can order a reactor on Amazon or build one on a 3D printer, get some radium and plutonium on eBay or Kijiji. Nuclear war could kill us in a couple of ways. First, the obvious, blow us to smithereens. Secondly, massive clouds from the bombs themselves and the subsequent fires would block out the sun. Food couldn't grow, and we all die. That's called a nuclear winter. And really, the only reason this hasn't already happened sometime in the last 75 plus years is that there has been a general agreement among nations that it could happen. So we should probably not use them. At least be very careful. This uneasy pact still mostly exists, but as you may have heard, there's a mad monk, Rasputin, and he's set to launch. 75 plus years though, yeah. So does that mean the longer an existential threat exists without actually killing us, it's a lesser chance that it eventually will? Not really. Existential threat to humanity number 2. And I'm going in somewhat random order here. Climate change. Not quite as old a threat as nuclear, but close. The first scientific widely released paper saying that burning carbon et al. Is unsustainable, 1957. You'd think with this 65-year head start, this warning, we wouldn't be facing the fires and floods we are today. What happened? Well, since that 1957 warning, and these are rough estimates, warning ignored for about 20 years, then denied for another 20 years, argued for 20 more, and here we are. Temperatures rising, oceans rising, rivers wiping out life and property. Eventually, ain't no mountain high enough, all the rivers wide enough to keep me from saving you, babe. There's just no place left to go. Existential threat number 3, pandemics. Well, how could that be, right? Pandemics have tried to kill us a couple of times at least, and we've persevered, conquered them. Yeah, mostly. But there's viruses. Viruses out there we haven't even heard of yet. Viruses also develop and mutate at a faster rate than the vaccines that can battle them. We're constantly playing defense. And so far, our defense has been made up of 3 parts: science, medicine, and luck. And that's just phase 1 of this particular threat. Phase 1 is naturally occurring viruses that can make the jump to humans. And once that happens, humans are really good at spreading it to each other like wildfire. With COVID, science and medicine jumped into action, but the politics of fear drove a wedge into that. So phase 2 of the pandemic threat is actually pandemic or virus engineering. Even with COVID, the debate continues on whether the virus came from a food market or a lab leak. There are strong arguments for both. Lab leak is no longer a far-fetched theory. We know that disease control labs worldwide study things like complicated deadly viruses. Engineering does take place, and we're supposed to have confidence in the safety and security of these labs so that no lethal virus is stolen or even accidentally rides out on some employee's backpack. It's not only the virus, but how secure is the genome of the virus? Where is that kept? And who guards it? It's not insane to believe that a bad actor, a government or a terrorist, wouldn't engineer a virus or steal an engineered one to engage in bio-warfare. If that happens, we're all dead. It's one thing to battle a pandemic that everyone, well, most everyone, agrees must be stopped. But if one is used as a weapon against us, existential threat. Existential threat number 4. This is the newest one. AI, artificial intelligence. And here's the simple explanation. If machines are smarter than humans, why would we need humans? It's a dark dystopian scenario that at first sounds like science fiction until you realize that a good deal of this has already happened. For centuries, we have made machines to ease the human effort. And now in the modern age of robotics, more and more machines perform human function. But through all this, the machines couldn't think. They needed us to exist. Suddenly they could. Machines could think, at least in an artificial kind of way. Humankind has been working on AI for about the last 50 years. The man they call the godfather of artificial intelligence is 75-year-old Geoffrey Hinton. You may have heard his name, especially lately. Hinton created some of the first information networks that could think, at least appear so. We use the term algorithms now pretty loosely. Social media creates one for all of us to anticipate our needs, wants, and future actions. In the 70s and 80s, Hinton and others used algorithms, and they basically saw the first levels of AI.
It could work!
Hinton said that by 1986, they realized what they had. It wasn't great, but all they needed was more data and bigger computers. By 2006, they had that. And AI became so much more sophisticated, and only more so since then. Imagine all the data at lightning speed anticipating your every move. Well, that's pretty much ChatGPT, and that's just one brand. Google, Apple, Meta, all have their own versions of it. The Godfather, Geoffrey Hinton, said this only recently. For years he believed, and I think we all did, that the human brain was superior, and the goal of AI was to get it as close to human as possible. But now, as Hinton says, and he added that he only came to this conclusion a few months ago, because that's how quickly it's evolving, that AI is already smarter than the human brain. It's better, and it continues to learn at a rate that is not only faster than humans, but also a rate that humans could never hope to match. Think about it. It would take a person several lifetimes to even absorb all of the world's knowledge, and then we'd have to store it, i.e. remember it, and we'd have to share it, communicate it, and all through clumsy, time-consuming ways like talking, listening, learning, reading. Machines, they already know all there is to know, and they are all connected. They talk to each other and almost instantly learn what the other machine knows. And all this is combined to have even a new set of knowledge, which again instantly gets shared. Not only that, humans think the Internet of Things is a good idea. We want our thinking machines to be connected to our refrigerators and our coffee makers, our cars and our houses, our trains and planes and robots. Add this all up, it's not that difficult to conceive of machines taking over. If they are smarter than us, then why would they continue to work for us? And then it wouldn't really take them that long to figure out, if they didn't know it already, humans are completely unnecessary. What do? Well, why don't we just unplug all the machines? Yeah, okay, let's do that. You and me right now. Unplug every machine in the world. See how life goes after that. In some ways, machines have already taken over. They have many human jobs. They help create misinformation echo chambers. Every military in the world would love regiments of battle bots to destroy the human lives of the enemies while protecting their own. We already use drones. This is Terminator stuff, right? Well, it's pretty real. Artificial intelligence could be the end of humanity. Geoffrey Hinton and dozens of other high-tech experts have signed a letter warning of the dangers and suggesting we take a step back and put a pause on the development of this technology. That, though a good idea, may be too late, but the nuclear power model may work here. Again, if we all cooperate. In other words, we all agree that this is pretty powerful and bad for the species. So we all agree we're not going to use it, or at least agree on strict guidelines. For example, the European Union, 27 nations, already have draft legislation expected to pass regulating the use of AI. Existential threat number 5, and I'm personally adding this one. It's not usually in any of the top 5 lists, but I think we're there. Number 5, populism. I had first hesitated at putting this on the list because, come on. Over the centuries, we've had many different kinds of rule and politics, and it hasn't wiped out humanity. Populism, however, is coming about as close as we could get. Populism is largely a conservative tactic. Conservatism is an outgrowth of monarchy. Protect the wealth, self above all else. The world, I believe, is largely liberal, small l, liberal, as in we care about each other. We're mostly tolerant. We're socially kind to varying degrees. And I'm not describing nations here. I'm describing humanity. We'd love to see each other all live and do well. Humans, for the most part, are more liberal than conservative. The liberals have split into many different factions, but usually have a majority. So how do you unite conservatives of varying degree to try and defeat the liberal politic? Populism. Populism generally states that it's time for the everyman to unite against the powerful who are painted as evil and corrupt, the deep state, the elite, the swamp, and return the power to the people. It's a very appealing proposition, except, and this is in his book, Has Populism Won? The War on Liberal Democracy, co-author, politics professor Daniel Drake points out these 4 things. A, populism only pretends to appeal to a middle class that is shrinking, because more and more there's rich and there's poor. There's less middle. B, the lower class doesn't actually benefit when a populist gets elected. C, the rich and elite conservative populists encourage chaos, and they try and direct it. And D, they run afoul of the rule of law. Sound like anyone who's been in the news lately? Populism preaches a true return to democracy when in fact it's an end to democracy. Once the people lose all the power, can the end of humanity be far behind? Mercifully, maybe one of the other threats will kill us first. There's your 5, as I see it, existential threats to humanity: nuclear war, climate change, pandemics, artificial intelligence, and populism. Depressed yet? Well, there's actually 5 more. Superior intelligence, alien space invasion, asteroid hits, supervolcanoes, super bacteria, and deadly frozen microbes in the Arctic permafrost. And on that last one of my favorite old science fiction movies is the original Blob. Remember The Blob with a young Steve McQueen? An unstoppable blob absorbs and destroys everything in its path. Spoiler alert, they find out the only thing to stop it is cold. They manage to freeze it using fire extinguishers, and then they helicopter it to the Arctic, where it's buried in ice. And then an ominous graphic appears on screen, telling us that as long as this thing, this blob, stays frozen, the world will be safe. Silly 1950s sci-fi, but now, how foreboding. Because science thinks there are millions of years of frozen microbes, bacteria, virus, and who knows all what else in that permafrost. And as we all know, it's thawing out. So, deadly microbes, they may not be their own existential threat. They may be more like a 2B, an added danger from climate change. Super bacteria, however, is its own worry. So are the super volcanoes and asteroid hits. Something killed all the dinosaurs. As far as alien space invasion, not as likely, but at this point, I can't rule it out entirely. Going back to our original top 5, though: nukes, climate, pandemic, AI, and populism. Note that 4 are of our own doing. Only pandemics, the unengineered, non-biofair ones, would be something that attacks us. The others are things that we've created that can eliminate us from the planetary ecosystem of our own doing. But on the bright side, the Earth actually may be better off without us. We are not the most highly populated species that exists, but no other species does more to negatively affect the planet than us. Scientists say that it's difficult to calculate the odds of us destroying humanity because it's never happened before. To which I say, that we know of. Really? How do we, or would we, know that these last few million years are humans' first go-round? We only assume. The closest odds they can come up with of destroying ourselves is 1 in 10,000 per century. I'm not even sure what that means, but they do say that the chances are 100 times greater if the existential threat is man-made. And as I just pointed out, in the top 5, most of them are. Impossible though, right? You're saying we'd never do that. We have a survival instinct. Yeah, but we're also short-sighted. We're not as bright as we think we are. Machines are smarter. And we believe this could never happen to us. And we'll continue to believe that until it does. And when it does, only machines, possibly space aliens, will be around to say, I told you so. The solutions are simple. 1, no nukes. 2, stop burning carbon. 3, get vaccinated. 4, rely less on machines. 5, fight for democracy. Well, that's easy. But it's tougher than that because each threat by humankind comes with politics. The definition of politics is the interaction of people. We're not that good at it, and we appear to be getting worse. So instead of taking each issue individually, we should come up with a blanket statement. This, the survival of humanity, shall be the defining mission of our times. I'll repeat, the survival of humanity shall be the defining mission of our times. Look to people who, in their own way, are making that their mission too. These threats are real. You know, when the proverbial ostrich senses danger, sticks their head in the sand, to them, the danger is gone. And what usually happens? They get shot in the ass. I'm hoping we have a better sense and a better outcome, that in 100 years, or 1,000, or 1,000,000, we're still around. Even 1,000,000,000 years, when the sun turns this third rock into scorched earth, we will have survived by moving all of humanity somewhere else. Hey, I don't care where I live, I just want to live.
Let's con what?
Later That Same Life is written, voiced, and produced by Larry Fedoruk. LarryFedoruk37@gmail.com. Subscribe to Larry's podcast YouTube channel. Get automatic notifications with each new episode.